Good morning, everyone. I certainly want to welcome you to the Chautauqua County, Greater Jamestown, Chautauqua County Airport to be the Robert H. Jackson Field. This is a very, very exciting day for us. It was many, many years ago that I first climbed in a little Piper Cherokee and took off from runway 13, which turned me on to a 28-year career in the United States Air Force, flying America's great jet fighters. So it's special for me on a personal level, but it's clearly special for all of us. As we look at our veterans around this room, I want to especially acknowledge our Normandy veterans here who attended the 70th Normandy anniversary. Tony Costanzo, Paul Arnone. How about a round of applause for all of our veterans who are here? I can't acknowledge everyone, but Roland Swanson's a Navy CB. I always love the Navy. I always have to acknowledge him. And Jeff Tomasini, flew in a C-47 over the hump, right? So congratulations. What a great day to have you here. And the Douglas C-47 was called the Skytrain. Basically used extensively by the Allies during World War II and remained in frontline service with various military operators through the 1950s. And I have to acknowledge John Watkins, the Navy did have a version as well, although I tend not to acknowledge that. You talk about Americans mobilizing for war, the greatest generation. Listen to this. More than 10,000 aircraft were produced in Long Beach and Santa Monica, California, and Oklahoma City between March 1943 and 2 years later in 1945. 5,000 aircraft a year. When Americans mobilized to go to war, that greatest generation turned to. The crew of 4, the pilot, the co-pilot, the navigator, and the radio operator, could carry 28 troops. Here it comes. 28 troops. Power plant 2 Pratt & Whitney R1830-90C twin Wasp, 14-cylinder radial engines, 1,200 horsepower each. Maximum speed, 224 miles an hour. 10,000 feet at 10,000 feet. It would cruise, though, at only 160. The range, 1,600 miles, service ceiling, 26,000 feet. And to get to 10,000 feet, it took a leisurely 9.5 minutes. The C-47 truly is an airplane that has a tremendous mark in our history, but with a machine comes the airmen that flew it, that faced danger, that were there to liberate our allies, and were there in defense of freedom. So I think it's a salute not only to those that built her, but those that flew her and those that maintained her. So how about another round of applause for the C-47?
I think is great is that by naming the airport after Robert H. Jackson, we are highlighting our place in history. An individual who grew up in Frewsburg, lived in Jamestown, practiced law in Chautauqua County, went on to make international news in the Nuremberg trials. And what happened in the Nuremberg trials is truly extraordinary, because here, for the first time in history, we were applying American jurisprudence in the context of a world war. It's astounding. Senator Young and I, a couple years ago, were successful in getting the state legislature to pass legislation naming one of the bridges that goes over the expressway after Robert H. Jackson. And we did that so that everyone who was driving through our county would know that our county was the birthplace of an individual who changed history. And now we're taking the next step forward, thanks to our county legislature and county executive Vince Horgan, to make sure that everyone who flies into our county also knows that. Congratulations, great step forward. Thank you very much.
Kick the program over to Mr. Robert H. Jackson Center, Greg Peterson. So Greg, take over from here. Thank you.
As Andy so aptly put, here's one of our heroes. Here's one of our heroes. In fact, one of his descendants is here today, Harold Bennett. I just want to acknowledge Harold Bennett, who is a distant cousin of Robert Jackson. So Harold, thank you for coming. Robert Jackson is the answer to the Jeopardy question. And the only person in the history of the United States to be Solicitor General, Attorney General, and a Justice of the United States Supreme Court. That's pretty nifty. From a guy from this area who never went to college, never graduated from law school, and as, again, Andy mentioned, he practiced law here for 20 years and went on to the highest levels in the domestic regime of both Presidents Roosevelt and Truman, and of course, being the chief American prosecutor at the international tribunals at Nuremberg. It was that backdrop that when the terminal that was owned by the city of Jamestown became considered to be part of the county of Chautauqua, that the Airport Commission at that time paused to reflect as to how the best way to handle this particular brand new terminal. In 1973, this airport was dedicated and accepted by the Honorable Joseph Gerasi, and what it was this terminal. This terminal was named after Robert H. Jackson. When you walk inside that very first opening door to the right is the little plaque honoring Robert Jackson. Often you walk right through it because you don't see it because you're looking at the second sliding door. But that's it. 40 years later, an opportunity presented itself, and we worked through the then airport head, Sam Arcadapane, and the Airport Commission with the opportunity to kind of complete something that started 40 plus years ago, naming this particular airport and field after Robert H. Jackson. Just as a side note, while things are setting up here, the call letters for this airport are JHW. That's not going to change. JHW, JHW, you've heard that forever. But interestingly enough, JHW stands for John H. Wright. John H. Wright, the founder of the telephone company. John H. Wright's personal and corporate attorney was, drum roll, Robert Jackson. So, John Wright, of course, who was married to Lucille Wright, to tie all these connectors together. It's great and nifty and wonderful that we have an opportunity to today do something very special, to perhaps conclude something that was started by Judge Alessi's commission back in 1972, 40 plus years later, to be able to name it after the Robert H. Jackson. And as soon as we can, we will be hearing from himself.
What's it like to be coming back to Jamestown after all these years? Have you been able to hear me? No, it's wonderful. I always like to come home. It's great to come home anytime. Jamestown's been very good.
Get good when you get out now.
I think we're waiting for a signal for me to come out.
Ladies and gentlemen, Justice Jackson.
Justice Jackson, welcome. What
Thank
a
you.
pleasure.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be back in Jamestown. I have prepared a couple things, and I want to make sure that I get names right. Vincent Horgan. Well, it is a great pleasure to be back in Jamestown. And I want to begin by thanking all of you for coming today, and especially the World War II veterans. Where are you guys? Oh, I recognize you. Wonderful. And again, thank Vincent Horgan for hosting us today, and for all the other citizens of Jamestown who have joined in. I think I'll put my glasses on. Oh, so much better. So much better. You should have been in there. Wow. There can be no greater honor than to be recognized by one's own hometown. I am proud and humbled that you chose to name this airfield and previously the terminal after me. Jamestown was my home for over 20 years, the place I chose to complete my early education, to launch my career, and to raise a family. I am deeply grateful to the many people who have had a hand in my success. My family, my teachers, my mentors, all here in Jamestown. In 1937, I had the distinct pleasure to return to Jamestown when WJTN Radio joined the National Broadcasting Company network. If I may, I'd like to share a quote from that speech, as the words are just as true today as they were in 1937. When Harry Wilder of the National Broadcasting Company network told me that he was considering investing in Jamestown, I was able, out of a long and happy experience, to recommend Jamestown to him as a desirable place in which to live, to invest, and to teach and to do business. I am proud to be of this city. We should all be proud to be of this city. Today, we are welcoming a similar partnership between the airport and a new carrier, Sun Air Express. May this new partnership grow and flourish. I'm going to brag for a minute. I hope that my work as Solicitor General, Attorney General, Associate Justice of the Supreme Court, and Chief American Prosecutor at Nuremberg has brought pride to this marvelous city and reflects the small town values I learned in school, in civic organizations, and in its close-knit community. Those values and the lessons of my life are as relevant today as they were 70 years ago. I am pleased to know, too, that they have been captured and are being preserved at a center that bears my name. The Robert H.Jackson Center was established in this community to present and to interpret my life's work in the pursuit of the rule of law, and to teach it to future generations. I hope sincerely that the center can be a place where students of all ages can learn what justice and fairness mean in today's society and can apply those ideals in an ever-changing world. I thank you.
Thank you, Justice Jackson. We're just thrilled and honored that you've been able to take from your busy schedule, come join us today in the dedication of this wonderful, wonderful field in your honor. And Jamestown is proud to call you one of your names.
Authorizing the Chautauqua County Airport at Jamestown to be named the Greater Chautauqua-Jamestown Airport Robert H. Jackson Field at the request of Legislator Dave Hemmeline and yours truly, County Executive Vince Horgan. Whereas Robert H. Jackson grew up in Frewsburg, New York, and attended school there and in Jamestown, New York, and whereas Robert H. Jackson worked as a law clerk and passed the bar examination at the age of 21, and whereas Robert H. Jackson went on to have a very distinguished career as a Jamestown trial lawyer, U.S. Solicitor General, U.S. Attorney General, and Associate Supreme Court Justice of the United States. And whereas during his tenure as Supreme Court Justice, he represented the United States by setting up the International Military Tribunal and served as chief counsel at the Nuremberg trials. And whereas the Chautauqua County Airport Terminal was dedicated in honor of Robert H. Jackson on June 10, 1973, and whereas the request to change the name of Chautauqua County Airport at Jamestown was made by the Board of Directors of the Robert H. Jackson Center and was unanimously approved by the Chautauqua County Airport Commission for the Chautauqua County Airport, therefore be it resolved that the Chautauqua County Legislature, in memorial to this great man, hereby approves the naming of the runways and surrounding grounds the Greater Chautauqua Jamestown Airport Robert H. Jackson Field. Adopted unanimously February 26, 2014.
Give him one last hand, Justice Jackson.